Welcome to another bonus episode of the Techmeme Ride Home, another portfolio profile episode. We're going to talk about another great company that the Ride Home Fund has invested in. We're going to talk about OpenAxis today, which you can find out more about by going to openaxis.com. And we're going to talk to the founder of OpenAxis, Alex Damianu. Alex, thanks for coming on the show.
Thanks for having me, Brian.
All right, Alex, let's do super simple right up top. What is OpenAxis? What are you doing?
Awesome. Yeah. OpenAxis is a data storytelling platform. We want to simplify and democratize the entire data storytelling process. So anyone, regardless of their technical ability, can tell stories with data. So you can easily visualize, share, and collaborate. And in doing so, we want to create a sort of community of data explorers and storytellers that can crowdsource insights and work collectively. With second order effects of increasing data transparency, data literacy, and all that fun stuff.
So super dumb and simple, forgive me, but essentially you're a tool to help people make graphs, basically explain ideas beyond words, right?
Yeah, absolutely. That's one part of it. So when you break down data storytelling, it's actually kind of a long process. You have to find the data, then clean the data, then visualize it or create a chart, and then perhaps sharing and collaborating. So we do those three things. We help you create a chart very easily, right? It's very simple, simpler than Excel or Tableau or any complicated tool that's out there. But we also help you find data, clean data that other people might have already sort of uploaded in the community that you can build upon each other's work. So simple data creator plus sort of data repository plus collaboration tools equals OpenAxis.
Sort of like a GitHub for finding and putting together the data, sort of like you would find and put together your code, right?
Exactly, absolutely. And within a community, because I wouldn't go into it, but we realized that, when we try to solve the data visualization problem, people are like, okay, well, where do I find the data or how do I clean it? That's actually harder than me actually creating a simple chart. So slowly over time, we realized we have to actually condense the entire data storytelling process and not just solve one part of it.
Well, before we get into the details about that, tell me about your background, your entrepreneurial background, your career, that sort of thing. What led you to this idea, basically?
Yeah, absolutely. Good question, because I've never done this before. This is my first tech startup. The genesis is actually 2020. The zeitgeist of the year was like no shared basis of facts, elections, misinformation. So that was one issue that kind of indicated to me that, okay, we kind of have an issue with data literacy and transparency in society. And the second thing was my last job. I was the national policy director for Andrew Yang's 2020 presidential campaign. If you remember the guy with the math hat, very data-driven ethos. I also never was in a presidential campaign. There's a story behind that if you want me to get into it. But
give me that real quick, because I feel like everybody fell backwards accidentally into that campaign. Maybe Yang himself as well. Go ahead.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, then I'll take two steps back for context really quickly. Political economist. I worked in the United Nations for a bit. I spent 5 years abroad in Africa and the Middle East. I was in South Africa, Ghana, Kenya, Abu Dhabi, and Saudi Arabia, mostly conducting economic research and consulting governments to help them improve foreign direct investment. I came back to the US. I started my own macroeconomic and geopolitical research firm, mostly selling research to hedge funds that wanted to kind of understand how the world works and then how it impacts the markets. Really cool work, terrible outcome and input because it just worked in the markets. So that was really like disillusioning. And I was like, well, what can I do next? Because my career so far has been looking at like the social contract of government, private sector, and civil society and how they work together to kind of just advance their nations. And I never really pulled the government lever. And here comes this guy, Andrew Yang, who's like running for president. He's an entrepreneur. He's not ideological, data driven. And I thought it was really compelling. Like someone, I think, sent me an Instagram video of him. And I really just started like watching a lot of his videos. I read his books, Smart People Should Build Things, which I think every entrepreneur should read. I think it's awesome. And The War on Normal People. And got really into it. I donated for the first time. I never donated to a candidate before. And I decided to show up to one of his fundraisers in Dumbo, Brooklyn. I didn't know anybody, by the way. I just showed up. And I met him and his team. And it was clear that they had never done it before either. We chat, and we're leaving at the same time. And then Andrew's Uber arrives before mine, and he kind of remembers me and my name. He's like, "Hey, Alex, where are you going?" And I said, Midtown. And he said, "Oh, me too. Hop in." So now I have like this exclusive 20-minute Uber ride with Andrew Yang. And it was awesome. We just chatted about ourselves, our lives, why we make the decisions we make. And then I kind of just pitched myself and said, "Hey, like, I'm a political economist. I'd love to help you out any way I can. You have great ideas in domestic policy, human-centered capitalism, universal basic income. Your foreign policy is kind of light. Let me help you out for free." And he's like, "Okay, cool," because we don't have that much money. I think this was like before the first debate. And I met with his team the following week, but I was so excited, Brian, to help him out and show value that I put together two 50-slide decks, just full of data and charts, just using data to tell a story about the country, unsolicited. He didn't ask me for it. And it seemed to pay off, because after like a meeting or two, I was offered a job that I didn't really know existed, which was to be the national policy director for the entire campaign. And so for the last 5 or 6 months of the campaign, I worked on that. And it was an awesome experience to try to craft policy through a data-driven lens and apply like entrepreneurial frameworks, like sprints around, how we create data-driven policy. And it was a really awesome experience. And that led me to realize what happened with OpenAxis. So I can tell you two things that kind of happened in the campaign that led me to want to do something about it. One is, it's really hard to tell stories with data and collaborate, even when you're the data-driven candidate. We would get data from think tanks and academics, pushing their kind of policies, and it was so messy. I'd get like version 8 or 9 and 10, and then I'd get an email, and then I would get some other form, and it was just very sloppy and messy to collaborate. That was one thing. The second thing within the campaign, which I would argue is akin to a small business, was across departments, they struggled to use data for their work. So, for example, the fundraising team could barely use Excel, let alone Tableau that the CTO was pushing on them. The voter outreach team didn't really know how to use anything. So the data team became a bottleneck. We became a bottleneck because no one could use existing tools because they were too complicated. We couldn't collaborate with others. And as a result, we were kind of limited in our ability to pump out policies. That was the one. And internally. Externally, something that was actually happening was, I think, kind of cool, was the Yang Gang, as they're called, our ardent supporters, would actually take the data from our policies, like the universal basic income, and they would go on the subreddit, the Yang for President subreddit, and create their own charts. They were actually creating like a de facto community where they're collaborating. It's like, "Oh, what about this data set? What about that chart?" To the point that I was actually checking what they would come up with often, because we had a small team and they were a really helpful resource. So I thought, why can't we have a community where people collaborate around data and kind of crowdsource insights? Because that was brilliant. And then, the campaign ended. We lost very badly. And I wasn't really too keen on like continuing the government path. I did help out the Biden administration, the campaign a bit. But I did want to figure out a way to use sort of tech to solve this, because we met a lot of tech people in the campaign. This is also a new world for me. Like, a lot of our supporters were, from Silicon Valley, and I kind of opened my eyes up to all the problems they were solving with tech, and I thought it was really cool. So I applied to this what do you call it? One of those startup generators. Accelerators, where they would just bring in founders and kind of matchmake. So I came in it was called Antler in New York, and I was coming in as a business founder, and there's some technical founders, and then they'll see if you can find some founding team and come up with an idea. So I went to that, and it's during the pandemic, so everyone's at home anyway. So there's really a lot of upside to just trying this. And it was really a problem that I wanted to solve. So I met my two co-founders there, essentially. Patrick, who's a data scientist and a full stack developer. He was at Via Transportation and also the Federal Reserve Bank. And he said, even as a data scientist at Via, we were a bottleneck for the marketing team, the comms team, customer success. They kept coming to us to help. And we were always very slow to help them out because they couldn't use any of the existing tools. Then I met Andrew, who is a product developer designer, and he was at Microsoft. He was also a former management consultant. He's a Harvard, Stanford guy. You got to have one of those. And he said, even though we were kind of pros at it, it's still a pain in the ass to do it within an enterprise if you're not in a technical department. So we said, okay, is there a way for us to simplify data storytelling, right? People fundamentally want to understand. They want to understand themselves, their work, the world. And from my experience, at least, data is fundamental to that truth and is a driver of progress. But, it's a little bit intimidating. People, are not that data literate. It's hard to be data transparent, and just existing tools from our experience are just too complicated. So like, all right, how do we, democratize it? And we came up with a prototype sort of thing where it was a simple database tool. We're like, okay, what's the biggest problem? I think creating charts is a hard problem. Tableau is too complicated. I don't use R or Python. So we did that. And we got into Techstars with this idea very quickly, which is awesome. Kind of validated, at least this is a problem that enterprises have. And we did some customer discovery, and we talked to a lot of marketing and comms teams, and they said, yeah, we're expected to use data for work, but we struggle with tools. The data team's a bottleneck. In fact, sometimes they weaponize data that we can't, use. So like it's kind of like a last mile problem within the enterprise. Like, we need the tools to be able to do the work ourselves. So we said, awesome. But we learned that enterprise sales is a long cycle, and the CTO and data teams will basically say, there's no problem at all. What are you talking about? We don't need whatever you're selling, even though the marketing and comms teams are kind of like crying in the corner. So we said, okay, we're not really going to survive, but we try to go direct to enterprise. Is there like another use case here? And then a trend was sort of happening because a lot of these marketing comms people were kind of former journalists, and they would say, you should actually look into the media industry. They might have this use case. And we realized that there were a lot of journalists leaving their big media companies to start their own Substacks and go independent. And we said, okay, well, if they're going alone, they probably don't have a team anymore to help them with research. They're probably not making their own charts. They probably want to have something branded. So let's talk to them and see if there's a use case. And we did, and it was great. Everyone said, yes, I need help. I barely use Excel. I usually just aggregate a bunch of research and do screenshots, and it just doesn't look good for my Substack and the brand I'm trying to build. So if you can solve the two problems of, one, helping me find clean data fast, and two, help me create a simple chart, then I will absolutely use you. And we realized that they're a really cool go-to-market strategy for us, because they become like a cash flow positive marketing channel, right? If they create charts on our platform and they send it out to their audiences, it creates a lot of impressions, right? And that creates feedback loops and user-generated content and network effects, and that will drive signups. So this is sort of like our go-to-market theory. We did some tests, and yeah, it was about like 5,000 impressions per signup, which is great because a lot of our Substackers on our beta waitlist now have millions aggregated together in terms of subscribers. So okay, cool. I think we have our go-to-market. We're going to use writers and journalists, cash flow positive marketing channel, and it'll help us get content on the platform. And then eventually we can kind of be like a Trojan horse into the enterprise. What do they call it? The bottom-up approach. Similar to TradingView did it, Slack did it, GitHub did it, where you kind of consumerize a product, get a bunch of users under a freemium model, and you can start converting them into paying users, and then eventually an enterprise will drag it in because everyone will start using it and say, why don't we just get an enterprise subscription? So that's been the model and the plan. And we've just started executing it after we raised our round. And I can keep going. Do you want me to tell you how it's gone so far?
Well, so to contextualize it, yeah, essentially where we are right now is some of these Substackers that are in your beta. If you're reading their Substacks, you're going to see, charts and data that they have used your platform to put together, and using the YouTube model of the embed. That's, as you're saying, hopefully going to, spread virally and naturally as these things do. And so hopefully it'll clue other people into OpenAxis as a tool to do that. But we're right now this month at the beginning of that stage, right? So some of these Substackers are sort of coming out of the closet, as it were, with OpenAxis.
Yeah, absolutely. We're finally getting them to onboard, and it's been pretty exciting so far. So when you do actually create a chart in OpenAxis, which this enables a lot of the feedback loops, is there's always a backlink. So readers can actually click on it, they can access the data, they can comment, and they can actually create a chart on top of the work of the author. So for the author, it's a cool way to use this as a distribution channel for their content, but it's also a cool way for them to get engagement with their readers beyond them just like liking it or commenting on it. So that's
right. And you mentioned the collaboration and the community aspect as well. So that, again, if you're somebody that is trafficking in ideas and trafficking in research, this is also a tool not only to help you do that, but then to sort of crowdsource the sort of idea collection and generation and correction, even, basically.
Absolutely, yeah, and it's a place where you can actually find what other people worked on and build upon their work. And that was a big realization for us talking to writers. A lot of them, when they said, "Okay, I'm going to write about this, but I actually don't know where to start. Can I just browse your platform and see what people have come up with?" So we realized that we had almost like a what's called the cold start problem, where it's like, okay, writers want to come in and produce content, but they actually already want to have content on it. And then from the reader side, they just want to consume the content. So we realized that, oh my God, are we turning into like a social media platform for data and charts? This is kind of interesting, because the biggest benefit for them would be, I would love to just build upon other people's work and see what they have instead of like starting from scratch. Because that's a problem now with existing data viz tools, is you're in a silo. Like it's up to you to figure out what the insight is you want to draw and how to do that. But with OpenAxis, you can just search, wealth or unemployment, and you can say, okay, there's 20 data sets. This data set has 13 charts on it. Oh, this is a really cool expert on the topic, and it kind of leads you to their content or their Substack, whatever it is. And it's just a cool way, like you said, to crowdsource insights. And that's like the real kind of benefit that we realize that we're creating with this community, where you can collaborate and build upon other people's work. So that's what we've been doing with these Substack writers now. We've been really narrowing that category, and we realized that we actually narrow it even more because there's still so many industries, right? Like, is it economic data? Is it political data, climate? So now we've narrowed it even further to just writers who focus on economic data and politics. And it's been going pretty cool so far, because over time, as they upload these data sets, you're indirectly providing clean data for other people to build upon, and you're actually creating a source of truth. We're kind of becoming the hub for economic data or the hub for political data, and that's going to be a cool way to launch into other industries going forward. So yeah, that's what we're working on now, building a simple chart creator that you can customize, giving collaboration tools for people to kind of like remix data sets and charts the same way you would remix like an Instagram, which I think is really fun. And yeah, seeing sort of where it goes. But I'm pretty excited about it because I just want to see what people come up with. Even with COVID-19, like that was probably the only time in history where so many eyeballs are looking at the same data. And what happened? Like random people came up with really cool insights. I don't know if anyone saw like Thomas Pueyo's Hammer and Dance article, also on the list. He's excited to use us. He just came up with awesome insights and had 60 million views. So like, if you give people space and tools, they're going to collaborate and come up with really cool things.
So if anyone wants to see what we're talking about, if you go to openaxis.com and you click on the little beta button, like I'm looking right now, we're recording April 20th. I can see some of the charts that have been created today, this week, from some of the beta testers. And then if you click on each one, depending on which one you're looking at, there's obviously I can see already comments and things like that coming in, and so someone could then build off of the chart that they've drilled down on and rebut or add to or what have you. Where are we in the beta right now? Like if people were curious right now about signing up and starting to use the platform, are we still on a wait list, or are we getting close to throwing the doors wide open? What if someone listening right now wants to really dive in? What's the status?
Yeah, absolutely. So we've onboarded a good chunk of the wait list already. And we realize that as writers are using us, the readers want to click in, like start playing right away. So we're going to actually reduce the friction there. And if you want to actually access the beta, you can do it sort of right away. It's like you will have to like log in and you will have to put in your email, but you'll get beta access the same day. Yeah, you can go right now to openaxis.com and sign up for the beta, and you'll have access the same day. So yeah, we're excited about it. And one thing that you kind of also alluded to before with the writers is they would tell us the biggest pet peeve they have is actually like charts that they can't click on. So they're doing research to see like a chart from Financial Times or The Economist doing the rounds. They can't click on it. It's a PNG. It would take them half an hour to actually find the sourcing. Mm-hmm. They actually love that about ours as well. Like whenever you have a chart in OpenAxis, there's always a backlink. So hopefully over time, we kind of almost have a cultural shift where people are expected to show their data and show their work because they're expected to have that on OpenAxis. So that's also kind of exciting.
And I'm clicking on it right now, and like I did a tag for Fred. I can't remember what Fred stands for, but it's everyone's favorite sort of data source for what is it? Economic market participation, labor market participation. And so I clicked through on this, and here we go. Labor force participation rate chart. Looks like this was put together around the State of the Union. It's March 1st, State of the Union 2022. There's various projects that I can click through. So, right, again, already with the cold start sort of problem, like there's existing sort of self-organizing communities and data sets that are already being populated on there. What's the size of the team right now? Like, obviously you've got an MVP that you're starting to push out to the public. But where are we on the development? Like, obviously it's still early days, and you're narrow focusing on politics and economics and things like that. But again, for people that want to start participating, there's still plenty more to build. So if they get involved, they can help you sort of dog food and expand the product, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Looking for people who obviously have this problem that they want to deal with, but also believe in the mission, right, of improving data literacy and transparency. The team, so we have the three co-founders. I'm the CEO because I'm not technical. I'm like the traveling salesman, which is what I realized being CEO is, but it's fun. And then we have Patrick, the CTO, and Andrew, the CPO, the product officer. It's like, I heard this phrase once. What was it? Hacker, hipster, hustler. So we have like the complementary skill sets, but the shared values, which I think is very important. And as we've been building the product, we've hired two more engineers who are both fantastic, Attila and Sam. And we're looking now for a designer to help sort of upgrade our chart templates so everybody is at a beautiful level, almost as if to like a New York Times level. And then probably also someone for community and growth, because we are realizing we're creating a community, and mentioned the cold start problem and whether it's content moderation or making sure the veracity of data and charts and growing users, that's something we're looking for as well. So yeah, in terms of team, that's what we're looking at. But yeah, anyone who's either a data enthusiast or wants to do research on the topic, hopefully OpenAxis will be a place where they can do that.
Listen up, because I've got a great deal just for you. Yes, you. Cut your cloud bills in half with Linode's Linux virtual machines. Develop, deploy, and scale your modern applications faster and easier. Whether you're developing a personal project or managing larger workloads, you deserve simple, affordable, and accessible cloud computing solutions. Get started on Linode today with $100 in free credit, just for listeners of the Techmeme Ride Home podcast. You can find all the details at linode.com/techmeme. Linode has data centers around the world with the same simple and consistent pricing regardless of location. Choose the data center nearest to you. You'll also receive 24/7, 365 human support with no tiers or handoffs regardless of your plan size. You can choose shared and dedicated compute instances, or you could use your $100 in credit on S3-compatible object storage, managed Kubernetes, and more. If it runs on Linux, it runs on Linode. Visit linode.com/techmeme and click on the Create Free Account button to get started. That's Linode, Linode, linode.com/techmeme. Want to change your career? There's never been a better time to become a programmer, and with Codecademy, you can learn to code on your own terms. Over 50 million people already know that Codecademy is the best way to learn to code. That's because Codecademy not only teaches you job-ready coding skills, but also helps you build unique projects for your portfolio, earn certificates, and even prep for technical interviews. I think that learning tech skills and opting into a career with limitless possibilities is a good answer to people quitting in this great resignation we've been seeing. With Codecademy, you can learn at your own pace and get qualified for in-demand jobs. Choose what to learn, from building basic websites to artificial intelligence and everything else you could want. No matter what your experience level, you'll be writing real working code in minutes. Learn coding languages including Python, HTML, CSS, SQL, JavaScript, and more. Not sure where to begin? Codecademy will point you in the right direction. Join over 50 million people learning to code with Codecademy and see where your coding can take you. Get 15% off your Codecademy Pro membership when you go to codecademy.com and use promo code RIDE. That's promo code RIDE at codecademy.com to get 15% off Codecademy Pro, the best way to learn to code. codecademy.com, promo code RIDE. So if anyone out there is a designer looking for an exciting new gig, get in touch with me. I'll put you in touch with Alex, or go to the website and get in touch with them there. But also, so we're talking about like going to market with the Substackers because a lot of them are solopreneurs and things like that. But also, what about like if there are any media organizations that might want to sort of test this out for their own, existing larger team operations? Are you prepared to work with folks like that right now?
Yeah, absolutely. We've actually already engaged with a lot of media companies. There are a few use cases for that, right? Like, so they're a little bit smaller. They might want to use the whole suite, like research as well as chart creation and content distribution, so they can get more subscribers for their platform. And that's the cool thing about the go-to-market is it's not too bespoke. We don't have to actually build more features for the enterprise beyond maybe just privacy and some database integrations. So we are already starting to look at that type of media companies. Then there's also the bigger media companies, like the Axioses of the world, where they don't necessarily need our chart creator because they have multi-million-dollar database teams, but they do love the idea of using us as a distribution channel for content or as a data repo where all their charts and data sets are linked to their articles. So not only do the readers have more engagement, but they now have a way to acquire more users when people search for content on OpenAxis. So that's probably the natural progression, right? After writers is media companies in terms of sequencing per industry, but a lot of interest from media companies. And again, they're like Substack writers. They do the marketing for us. And then eventually going into the enterprise for those marketing and comms teams, which there's already interest, but we have to make sure we sequence it properly.
Well, then let's end this way by doing a call to action, as it were. Depending on what you are intrigued by what OpenAxis could do for you. If anybody wants to get involved with OpenAxis, where should they go? How should they get started? And there's tens of thousands of really smart tech folks listening right now. If you have any asks from them, that's what these episodes are for as well. So tell us how we can get involved.
Yeah, absolutely. Sign up for the beta at www.openaxis.com. It's AXIS. That's one way to do it. Second way, just tell us what you want to see. What data is interesting to you? What data is hard to find or that's not cleaned? And how do you envision collaborating with others? That's something that we're also learning about as well. Like you see all these discussions happening on social media platforms, and a lot of it is kind of devoid of data. If it was filled with data, what would that look like? Those are probably the two main things. And what media companies would you prefer be more transparent, right? We also, second order effect is making people more accountable. So we create a culture where every time you publish something, you're expected to show that your work. That's pretty powerful. Generally speaking, try it out. Tell us what you want to see, and join the cause if you're really interested in this mission that we have, which I think is awesome because the vision is pretty big. Like we will become the home of data, and it will take a lot of years, and it's like a 10-year war we're going to go for. But I think it's gonna be awesome. We'll have this cultural shift and have some fun on the way.
100%. And as they say, hashtag proud investor. Ride Home Fund loves OpenAxis and is excited to be here right at the moment when you're launching this vision to the world. Alex, thanks so much for coming on the show and talking about it.
Awesome, Brian. Super fun. Thanks for having me.